Alright y'all, welcome back to another video. If you remember the last video, we got the engine and transmission in the car. Everything's set up as far as that goes, ready to go. Engine straight, transmission straight. I did notice one small problem though. Underneath the car, the steering shaft isn't actually connecting to the steering rack. So that's a small problem because the turbo's getting in the way right now. And I think that might have something to do with the way the car is lifted up in the air right now. So hopefully once the car gets on the ground, everything settles out, I'll be able to shift the rack as needed to get the shaft to line up with that. So I'm not too worried about that right now. I remember having this problem before on my last turbo setup. Number one thing I'm going to be working with is the oil drain lines, which aren't that big of a deal, but also finishing up the clutch kit install. It's not necessarily all-in-one kit because I actually went out on my own and purchased everything individually and sourced my own parts. So what I have here today is the master cylinder reservoir. I have a Willwood 3/4 inch master cylinder reservoir right here, which is actually going to be a problem with my fuel pressure regulator because the sensor is now in the way of the reservoir. So that's another thing. I actually just remembered that. So we got the reservoir right here. I got my clutch line right here from Chase Bays. All of this is Chase Bays stuff. The clutch line is actually for T56 install on a 240 SX. But being that they're very similar and same make and same setup between the Willwood and the transmission, theoretically this should all work. So hopefully we'll get all this installed and see what happens today. So stick with me and try to keep up because I'm gonna be moving pretty fast with this video. Okay, so this is kind of the rundown that we've got here. So originally my fuel pressure regulator was mounted up here. And as you can see, I've got a straight 8AN line going all the way down. What I'm going to end up doing is changing this into a 90-degree fitting and then also changing this vacuum line to a 90-degree fitting. That way I can move it over and then move it down so that this regulator will sit farther down right at the end of the master cylinder for the clutch. You guys may not see it because I don't have it written down, but the list is in here, rest assured. Piping, oil lines, we got intake piping, radiator, a little bit of wiring, not too crazy much. I still gotta get the starter put in. Drive shaft hasn't even been sent out yet to the drive shaft shop, so that's another process, but we'll cross that road when we get there, and one thing at a time for today. Should be able to get 90% of this ready to go actually by the end of today. Okay, so there you have it. The wiring in this area is pretty much all done. I did the best with what I had. I didn't want to redo all of it, but I did loom it all and wrap it all to the best I could as it stands. I ended up spending an obscene amount more time than I initially intended on fixing all this up as usual, but you know, we're not building a SEMA build here. This is a real life build. The car will actually run and drive and probably see some racing. So yeah, like I said, it's not a SEMA build. So anyways, if you know, you know. So we got fuel pressure sensor. I got 2 MAC valves. Here's the other one that runs to the other side for my external wastegates. And then I've got my boost control sensor here. And all that runs through the firewall right here. This is actually my air intake temp sensor. We ran it all the way up through here, along here. The intake temp sensor is actually tied into the back of my intercooler. in the piping itself that runs behind in the wheel well. So in case you're wondering, anytime I do anything with wiring, I always use an adhesive lined heat shrink with a butt connector. I don't ever solder wires together. It's just not a good practice for automotive because the solder will, over time, it could break and you could end up with high resistance between the two wires, which butt connector is a solid piece of metal and you're more or less fusing the two metals together when you crimp them. So, a little bit of wiring science that goes into it. But anyways, insulated heat shrink. I use Tessa tape, not electrical tape. Tessa tape is much stronger, much more resilient to wear and tear. I actually always have to cut the Tessa tape, whereas the electrical tape, obviously you can just pull apart on your own. And then for the wire loom, I like to use TechFlex. I have both kinds of TechFlex. This one splits apart and you can wrap it around the line after you've already ran it. And then there's also the kind that you shove the wire through and then terminate it after you shove the wire through. That's what all of this here, anytime you see this or this, like I redid all of this harness a while ago. That's what I like to use. And you can get it from Amazon for like pennies on the dime. That's pretty much it for the wiring. I do have to plug in the rest of the wiring harness up here and then we can get started. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna get started on the piping and maybe get the oil cooler set up for now. So it's been about a week since I've worked on the Z. I had to actually order some parts, so the drive shaft had to be fitted. That means the slip yoke had to be changed out for the T56 trim-inch slip yoke and shortened. So for today, the goal is to get the intake manifold on, the fuel pressure regulator, and all the fittings fit properly such that it'll fit right back in here, and also get the drive shaft in the car. Possibly even the exhaust, I don't know. At that point, there's really not much left to do besides the radiator hoses and the oil cooler as well. So for the clutch hydraulic system, I didn't add any of that into this video. I apologize. It wasn't really too difficult, and to me it wasn't really that interesting. In case you guys are wondering, I am using a Wilwood 3/4 inch clutch master cylinder. I ordered it from Chase Bays with the Chase Bays 300ZX adapter. Then I ordered a 240SX T56 clutch hydraulic line that runs all the way down to the transmission. And we are using a remote reservoir master cylinder, which means that if I wanted to, I could mount this reservoir up here. And keep in mind, this is a 1200 horsepower McLeod RX T1200 clutch. It is a twin disc. It is a very nice clutch, and with this combo between the Tilton hydraulic release bearing and the Wilwood master cylinder, it does turn out to be a very nice feeling clutch. I can sit here and I can push it all the way in with my hand without too much force. But for today, hydraulic system, clutch system, 100% complete, done. Check that off the list. moving on. So next up, we have the drive shaft. I just want to say shout out to Universal Drive Shaft of Tampa. Those guys have helped me out twice now. This is originally an Inland Empire drive shaft from Concept Z Performance. I went through 2 of them, and both of them had an imbalance. Finally got it balanced like 4 years ago, but obviously it has since gone through some major changes. And with that, we got the 31 spline Ford T56 yoke attached to my old Z32 drive shaft with the twin turbo flange on the back of that. I dropped it off to them at lunch one day around like 1:30, 2 in the afternoon, and they called me at 8 a.m. the next day with this thing ready to go. So shout out to those guys for having outstanding service. Wow, that felt like butter. Oh my goodness. Yo, these guys freaking killed it. Oh my God. It's like they've done this before. That's freaking awesome. Have a go at how smooth that is. That is the only bit of slip yoke that is out of the transmission. The rest of it is all up in here. And that is pretty much flat up against the flange in the back. It is literally freaking perfect. I am ecstatic. This is awesome. Oh, that was way easier than I ever thought it would be. Those guys are incredible over there. Drive shaft is a hit. Okay, so moving on to the fuel pressure regulator, I had to go ahead and order some fittings. The problems I was having was that because it's such a tight fit in that corner, I needed a right angle fitting at a 1/16 inch NPT thread. So what I ended up doing is I ended up ordering some nylon push lock hose. And the reason I did that is because it also has these style fittings. I got this kit off eBay, and it's literally specifically says it's for the Aeromotive A1000 fuel pressure regulator. I'm trusting that this will actually fit. Okay, so that pretty much does it for the fuel pressure regulator. This turned out to be a bit of a project in and of itself. So I had to re-drill the holes to mount it lower to get it out of the way of making contact with the sensor. And then I also had to get a 90-degree fitting down here to go down to the return to the fuel system. What's cool about these nylon fittings is it's actually O-ringed or something in here. So I can just swivel this however I need, but still tighten that down, which is super nice. So that does it for that. And I still have enough room to get my cap off for my master cylinder right here. Now we gotta carry on to the oil system and install the oil cooler.